Salut tout le monde, comment allez-vous? J'espère que vous allez bien. Bienvenue encore une fois à notre chaîne de YouTube. Aujourd'hui, on va vous présenter encore une fois une vidéo pour enseigner le français qui s'appelle French for Beginners. Si vous n'êtes pas encore abonné à notre chaîne, je vous invite à le faire et de taper sur le bouton de notification afin que vous puissiez recevoir tous nos vidéos. Hello everybody, I hope you're fine. Today we are going to present to you again a video to teach French, which is called French for Beginners. And if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, I invite you to do so, and also to press the notification bell so that you can receive our videos. Okay, I've presented this lesson in both in French and in English, so that you can hear how French actually is pronounced, and so that you can also practice. You can try to train yourself and see if you can be able to get some of these words in French out of your mouth. Today, the lesson today is going to be about conjugating French verbs using groups. Conjugation, let me repeat it again. Conjugation is very, very important in the French language. Actually, it is one of the core issues, one of the core grammar subjects in the French language. There is nowhere you can go if you do not know how to conjugate. So you have to conjugate. Conjugation is one of the most, if not the most important. If you don't go this way, conjugating way, then it's definitely you'll just have to forget about learning French. Most Latin-based languages are conjugated, and you have to put the verbs in different persons. That's why, because I explained already what conjugation means. Conjugation means you take the subject personal pronoun, that is I, you, he, she, they, we, and so on, and then you take a verb. A verb is a doing word, and then when you join them in French, this is really important, because what happens is that the verbs, they change, they have different forms when you take them. It's not like in English. In English, you can take one verb. For example, you take the verb to eat in English. You just everybody eats in English, so you say I eat, you eat, she or he eats. That's the only variant. The variant is only with he or she. So because you say he or she eats, but then we eat, they eat, and you plural eat. Everything almost remains the same. That's why you see English is considered simple compared to French. But in French, if you take those verbs, you see they will change. If you take the verb to eat, for example, you'll have to put it with the first person is je, and then the second is tu, and then il, or elle, and then you have nous, and then you have again vous, and then you have il with ils, and so on. Because I taught you these things, the subject personal pronouns, the lessons you have them. I've taught you already. I've done the conjugated for you the most used verbs, because in French the most used verbs, you have to know how to conjugate them right from the start, and I told you you have to learn them often. But I'm going to dedicate a lesson just to conjugate. It's going to be on its own playlist, so that you can be consulting it whenever you feel that you need to know these things about conjugation. And it is really, really important. Let me not repeat again. Let me repeat, or let me not repeat, but I'll repeat every time about conjugating French verbs, because it is really, really important. You have to really, really take it seriously. And in fact, you have to even look for there's a book that you have to go and buy a book, and just look for a book that is going to help you conjugate. You can go to any library. If you are in France, you know how we call libraries in French, or you know how to call bookshops. You go to a bookshop, or you can go to a library if you're a student, to borrow a book that can help you conjugate. And if you want to buy, you can go to a bookshop. So bookshop in French is a librairie. You know that. For those who are in France, they know that it's librairie. So it's not the librairie is not here. It's not the library. It's different. Bibliothèque is now the library in French. So okay, so without not much further ado, I've insisted so much in the importance of the conjugation, so you have to really take this seriously. So you see, in French we have three different categories, then we put them in groups. You have three different categories of verbs, and to make it simpler, we put them in groups so that if you can conjugate them according to the groups, it is going to help. It's going to make you, maybe it's going to make things much easier for you, because if you say you're going to conjugate all the verbs in French one by one, it's going to be really it's going to take you so much time, and it's going to be a very huge task. So that's why the French groups the French verbs are divided into groups. They are divided in groups. Why are they divided in groups? So that they can make it easier for you, since you will be looking at the groups, and then you will see why these groups they are there, and why it is important for you to know why you have to learn conjugating by the groups. So for example, we have three different groups in French. You have the first group, then the second group, and the third group. So in the first group of verbs, the first groups in French, the first group of verbs are verbs that end with er, and I've already told you that, except the verb aller. Aller is the verb to go. We conjugated it in the beginning, okay, at the top of this course. At the beginning of this course, we conjugated this verb, because this verb, it's very important. It's also the verb it is used for how are you, but it's also the verb to go. It ends with er, but it is not a regular verb. Now, all regular verbs that end with er, all the regular verbs that end with er are put in this group. Remember, aller is not a regular verb. It is an irregular verb. But the rest of the verbs that end with er are regular verbs. And why do we say they are regular verbs? Because when you say something is regular, it is something that is regular. It is something that is sort of smooth. You see, it's smooth. Actually, it's simpler. It's a regular. If you say that is his regular routine, that it is like his day-to-day routine. So something that is simple, something that repeats itself. It is the same. So repeat itself, or it's the same. So when you talk about regular verbs, those are verbs that more or less they're conjugated the same. So if you know how to conjugate one, you will definitely know how to conjugate the rest. And in French, most fortunately, regular verbs ending with er constitute about 80%, or even let's say 70 or 80% of the verbs you will find in French. So if you know how to conjugate er verbs, well, you know how to conjugate 80% of French verbs. But and the good thing is that you don't need to know how to conjugate all the verbs. You just know how to conjugate one. You don't. I mean, what I'm saying is you don't need to conjugate or to practice conjugating all of them. What I want to say is that if you know how to conjugate one, then you will know how to conjugate the rest, because they're all conjugated like that. That's why you see in this lesson there, I've prepared for you, sorry. In this group, the first group, verbs that end in er, except aller, are regular. Remember, aller is not regular, except aller, because it's only radical. What is the radical? The radical, when you talk about a radical, or the root, is the root of the verb. When you say radical, because it's only radical, does not undergo any modification during conjugation. You take the root, the radical, or you can call it the stem. You can call it the stem. A stem. What is a stem? It's the main body of a plant, for example. So in the verb, you can have the main body. For example, in this lesson there, I have taken, for the er verbs, I've taken the verb chanter. Chanter, repeat after me. Chanter is the verb to sing. I've taken the verb chanter. So chanter, if you take its stem, if you take its stem, which means the main body of it, you will see the stem of the verb chanter is chant. It is chant. And now in order to conjugate regular verbs with er, what do you do? To conjugate a regular verb, a regular er verb, you drop remove the er, drop it, drop the er of the infinitive. What is the infinitive? I told you infinitive, it's the verb before it's a verb before it's conjugated. Infinitive, it's a verb before it's conjugated. For example, e.g., here we have the verb chanter. Chanter is with the er is an infinitive. It's the infinitive of the verb chanter. That's infinitive. Remember, infinitive means a verb before it's conjugated. What does conjugated means? When it is conjugated, is that you put the persons. You put je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. You put those subject personal pronouns before the verb. That's what conjugation is all about. Remember that. And the personal pronouns also, I have taught you. There's a lesson in personal pronouns in the French course, course 1. You have that lesson, so you will know the person. You have to know the subject personal pronouns. So the subject personal pronouns, when you take a verb, like I said, with er, regular er verb, drop the er of the infinitive, that is the verb before it is conjugated, to get the stem. The stem, we said, is the main body, the stem. Then add the 6 present tense endings, because now when we start to conjugate that with the verb, we are going to conjugate it into the present tense. We are not into the past tense. For all English speakers, you know about tenses. We have past tense, you have future tense, and so on. So, but when you are beginning to learn how to conjugate, you are in the present tense. So you will take you take the stem when you have removed the er for the verb chanter, for example. There, if you look at the verb chanter, if you drop the er, you get the stem. It is chant. It is chant. Remember, in French, you don't pronounce the last consonant unless there's an e. So you have chant. So what do you do now? Then add the 6 present endings. 6 present endings. So you will see now, it will give you, if you add the 6, and then 6 will mean that you conjugate it 6 times. You conjugate, you say je, repeat after me, je chante. So you've added an e there. Yeah, you remember the e, because if you add the specific endings, you will see there's e, then there's the es, then again there's e, then there's ons, then the ez, and then there's the ent, and you're done. So for example, let's take the verb chanter. We remove the er. We have the stem, which gives you now, when you start to put them into the present tense, and when you conjugate them, when you add the subject personal pronouns, that is je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. So you will have je chante, tu chantes, il or elle chante. Remember, il and elle are they are put together because they are conjugated the same, but it means he, and the other one, elle, means she. Nous chantons, vous chantez, il chante or elle chante. Remember, ILS is they, because IL simply is he. ELLE is she. ELLES is they, but feminine. Remember that. So if you have any question there, you can go to the comment section and ask me. Or for those who want to have private lessons, you can get in touch. You can get in touch with me directly so that we can discuss the terms of the terms of our contract, and you can have lessons with me, because some people, when it comes to conjugation, they need to have somebody to really sit down and to explain to them or even show them. But if you just follow what is written there, and if you follow my voice, if you follow my instructions, you will see that it is easy to take a regular er verb and conjugate it. because we have done it here together. And the most important thing is to know the endings of each person. For example, if you start with the J, you know it is going to be you take the stem, you add an E, so it is je chante. The second person is two, and then you add es, so it is going to be still it is just to chante. Pronunciation that doesn't change. For je chante, to chante, il or elle chante, the verb pronunciation doesn't change. It is the same. Whether there's an E or an ES, you just say chante. You pronounce the T because there's an E. And then you have nous chantons et vous chantez, and then il chante. So as you can see there, the ER verbs. Now, if you just go and look, just type. Going nowadays with the new technology, you can go and type ER verbs. You go and search in the internet. Just type verbs, French verbs ending with ER, or regular French group 1, regular French groups. It will give you verbs with ER, or you can just type verbs ending with ER, except the verb to go, which we have already conjugated here at the beginning of the lesson. We conjugated the verb aller. You will see many verbs. You can take those verbs and now you practice with them. Look for any ER verb except the verb aller and practice with them. You will get them online. There are so many nowadays. You just search online, you get whatever you want. Then you can practice to conjugate that, to put it into different persons. And just know that it is still the present tense also. And remember also in French, when you say je chante, it means I sing, and it also means I am singing, which means that I am singing and I sing. It's both found in je chante, because I sing and I am singing. In English, I am singing is present continuous. Present continuous because it is something it's happening in the present, but it is continuing. And je chante is just simple. It's just present. It's a present tense. But in French, the present tense and present continuous is in the same conjugation. So je chante means I sing or I am singing. To chante means you sing or you are singing. Il chante means he sings or he is singing. Elle chante means she sings or she is singing. Nous chantons means we are singing or we sing. Vous chantez is plural. Remember, it can be plural or singular. Singular, when it is singular, it means you are talking to somebody you don't know, or you are in an official, you are in an office, you'll be using you. And if you're talking to even one person, you use you to show respect. So vous chantez, that one, remember, it is plural. If you're talking to a second person plural, you will be using vous if there are many. But you can also use vous when it is one person, but this time when it is somebody you don't know, or if somebody who's older than you, somebody you respect, or you're in an office. Because if you are using tu chante, it means it's somebody you are friendly with. That's used with friends, people you know, people you're familiar with. And then last but not least, you have ILS. You pronounce ILS, il also. E-L-L-E-S also is pronounced L. But this is they in plural. So it is il chante, meaning they are singing or they sing. Elle chante, they are singing or they sing, but plural. So you see in French, the gender rule always applies. So like I said, look for go to the bookshop, get a book that will help you to conjugate. Conjugation is key to mastering the French language. It's key. It's one of the core issues of the French grammar that you have to learn, because remember, here is still we are conjugating in the present tense. You'll have to deal with the past tense. We'll have to also deal with the imperfect tense. There's also the future tense. There's conditionals. There's what we call even subjunctive in French, which is quite complicated. So you have to really work hard if you want to master conjugation in French, and if you want to even master the French language. So okay, now let's get to the second group. Now the second group also is considered to be regular verbs. Why? We consider them regular verbs because also if you know how to conjugate one, you will know how to conjugate the others. But you see, the IR verbs, they contain around 300 verbs. The second group actually are verbs that end with IR. And you realize that in French, there are verbs that end with IR, but they are irregular. But we'll talk about irregular verbs last in this lesson. So regular verbs ending with IR, like I said, there are not so many of them. The majority of regular verbs end with ER, like I said. But you have IR verbs that end IR verbs that are regular. So it's the same. It applies to the rule. Also applies to this second group. You see, like to form the present tense of a regular IR verb, you drop the IR of the infinitive to get the stem. Then add IS. Then you add IS again, and then you add IT, and then you add ISSONS, and then you add ISSEZ, and then you add ISSENT. So for example, I've taken the verb there to finish. In French, you say finir. Finir is to finish. So drop IR. Drop IR. What do you get? You get the stem, which is FIN. In French, if you are to pronounce that FIN, actually it means fin. It means the end. But here we're dealing with the verb because we take the stem. So, because even the stem, Sean can means Sean. If you take the stem, for example, we have the stem for the ER verb chanter there. Sean also can be a word, but here we're dealing with we're talking about the verb. Don't think it's a word here. It's the verb. We're saying we are removing. We are dropping some things in the verb, and then you get the stem, and then from that stem you add. You'll be adding, when you're conjugating. That is when you put the persons. When you put je, tu, il, elle, nous, you see what you add. So when you remove IR, you get the stem FIN. Now when you conjugate, when you take the first person, you'll say you add IS, like I said. So you will see when you add IS in IFIN, you will see when you say it is je finis. Just repeat after me. Je finis. Je finis. Tu finis. Tu finis. Il finit. Il finit. Elle finit. Elle finit. Nous finissons. Nous finissons. Vous finissez. Vous finissez. Ils finissent. Ils finissent. Elles finissent. Elles finissent. So do the same thing also with the second group. You just type for regular verbs, regular IR verbs in French. It will give you a certain number of them, and then you can practice conjugating them. You will realize that it's easy once you know how to do one. Then the others you will learn how to do them. You have to note that most of there are not many in the French language. Like I said, there are around maybe 300. There could be more, but they're not more than the ER verbs, because the majority of verbs in French are ER verbs. So you can do the practice like I told you. But the same thing you can, for those who want to have private lessons, you can get in touch, and then we can work out an arrangement and see how we can work out together the lessons. Now that brings me to the third group. So in the third group now, like I said, it's good now to you go to group by group, and then when you reach to the third group, which are all irregular verbs, belong to this group. All irregular verbs, even the verb aller, which is an ER verb, it belongs in the third group. And normally in the third group, normally when we start to conjugate them, we always start with the most important irregular verbs. And you see, most of the irregular verbs, the good thing is that the irregular verbs, the most important ones, they are used everywhere. In fact, the most famous ones, I have already conjugated them for you in the beginning of this verb. I conjugated the verb to be. I conjugated the verb to have. I also conjugated the verb to go. I think I conjugated the verb to do. The most used irregular verbs in French, we conjugate them normally at the beginning so that you don't get confused. But since we are here doing verbs generally, we are going to try and look at all the irregular verbs and try and see how you can get to used to them. But you see, regular verbs can be subdivided into different subgroups. For example, you will see some of them, they are almost they're actually conjugated the same, even if they are written different, but they're conjugated the same. And that's why we can subdivide. There is some subgroups in the irregular verbs, so that it can make the things easier. Why do they call them irregular verbs? They are irregular because they don't follow these normal rules of conjugation and must be learned individually. You can practice with this verb, because when you take the ER verbs, you see they're easy. You take the IR verbs, which are regular, they're easy. Remember, there are IR verbs which are not regular, so they will fall under the third group. So you see that you have to learn these things individually. You have to practice more with the irregular verbs. But like I said, the irregular verbs that are famous and mostly used and that you have to learn even often are those verbs I told you. The verb to be, être, the verb to have, avoir, and then the verb to go, aller, and the verb to do, faire. Those verbs that are the most commonly used irregular verbs, and it's the most used verbs actually in the French language. And actually I gave them to you from the beginning of this lesson. So if those who have been following me keenly, they know that these things I have done them. So the irregular verbs, they don't follow these normal rules of conjugation and must be learned individually. They change forms unlike the regular ones mentioned above. They change forms. That's why you see the verb aller is put into the third group category, the irregular verbs. Why? Because you take that verb aller. If you remember, we conjugated it. You will see there it is aller. But when you take it to the first person, you will see it will change its form completely. You will say je vais. Repeat after me. Je vais. Je vais. And then tu vas. V-A-S. Tu vas. You see, it changes completely. And then il va. That is va. V-A. Il va. And then also elle va. Remember, il and elle, they are conjugated the same. The verb remains the same. Elle va. Elle va. Nous allons. And remember, nous allons, you have to join when verbs are conjugated, and the verb that is conjugated starts with the vowel. You have to join when it is nous. You have to join the s. It is a mandatory mandatory connection. You have to connect. You have to say nous allons, nous allons, nous allons, and then you get to vous. It is vous. You also do the same mandatory connection. You do vous allez, and then it is ils vont, V-O-N-T, or elles vont. So remember that you see how that verb aller has changed. That's why we put it into the irregular category. So remember, and I repeat this once again, remember this and do not forget it, and always put that in your head. Conjugation, you cannot go around it. You have to deal with it head on. You have to deal with it head on. When I mean head on, you have to get a book, practice. Once you have practiced, because you have done how you have practiced it, and you know that you can conjugate the majority of the verbs, I'm telling you, you're going to be comfortable, because now when you are going to start conjugating verbs into the past and so on, you see it's going to be look like a much easier work for you, because you will already have started to know how to put verbs in different tenses, because here we're in the present tense. When you learn to start conjugating, you are in the present tense. Okay, now I think I've come to the end of this. So the next lesson, we are going to start by conjugating verbs. Now we will be looking at examples in the next, because this is going to be, I'm just going to make a whole playlist for conjugation. So we are going to the next lesson, we are going to conjugate verbs. We'll see how to conjugate them, and then practice how to conjugate them. But I am calling upon you to also do like I've told you. Get a book, or go to the internet, look for those verbs, practice using the formula that I've given you there. And then the third group, we are going to use the third group. We had already started conjugating verbs in the third group, because you learn these things individually, mostly the third group, but also it's important for you to practice by yourself, so that you get used to conjugating verbs in French, because this is not something that people are used to, the English speakers are used to. So you have to get into this system and know that this is how things work. Okay, so I come to the end of this lesson. I hope it was interesting for you. I hope you learned something. And if you have questions, like I say always, come to the comment section and ask questions. If you want private lessons, you can get in touch. For those who are in France, I know you are in most of my groups. I put you in different groups, and you can contact me through the groups. You have my number, because you are in the group, so you can contact me through the number, and you can tell me your wishes, so that we can work out a working situation, a working plan, whereby we can see how you can be helped. Okay, until I see you next time, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not subscribed. And if you know somebody who is interested in learning foreign languages, please forward the link to them, so that they can join our community and learn foreign languages with us. Until next time, au revoir.